The South Africans who recently arrived in the United States are, in my opinion, actual legitimate refugees from a racial state that is operating a kind of informal form of stochastic terrorism against them. And so the reaction that I'll cover elsewhere is just crazy to these people coming to the United States. Because if anyone actually was a victim of persecution, it is the white people in South Africa, the descendants of Dutch and English colonists who have been there for hundreds of years now. They are genuinely being persecuted by the black majority controlled government. And so this is just wild. And I'll take you through some of these things. So here's an official statement from the African National Congress, the ANC, which is the ruling government of South Africa. And they are just lying through their teeth, right? They say this: let it be clearly, categorically stated, there are no Afrikaner refugees in South Africa. Well, obviously you're a refugee from South Africa. No section of our society is hounded, persecuted, or subject to ethnic victimization. That's so obviously not true. These claims are a fabrication and a cowardly political construct designed to delegitimize our democracy and insult the sacrifices made by generations who fought for freedom. The thing is, if the white population of South Africa wasn't being treated as a resource to be extracted from and a whipping boy to be abused, and in the most horrific manner, I just want to be clear, then this might not seem so hollow, but instead they make this a political issue. The misuse of refugee protections to shield right-wing anti-transformation elements is a violation of the spirit and letter of international law. Millions around the world face real persecution, and they're the ones deserving of sanctuary, not those offended by a democratic society working to redress past injustice. Well, I'm sorry, I find it just impossible to believe that there isn't persecution against the white population in South Africa. So you've got this as a perfect example. January this year, Cyril Ramaphosa, however you pronounce it, signed into law a bill that would allow land seizures by the state without compensation. So he would be able to steal land from the white farmers and give it to his black patrons without compensating them in return. This is just expropriation, as communists would have it. And it's not like the ANC isn't a socialist party, but then, I suppose to their left, there are much more hardline communists who are also eating up a large percentage of their voter base. For example, Julius Malema's EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters. You know the ones.
Alliance, shoot to kill, Gaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer.
Now, this is absolutely not acceptable in any kind of democratic civilization, right? You understand when you've got an entire stadium, like 50,000 people, chanting, kill the farmer, meaning kill the white man in South Africa, and they're doing a little song and dance about it. The media has defended this, saying, well, this is just symbolic. It's not literal. And it's like, okay, well, if there weren't so many farm murders, maybe I'd agree with you. But even then, probably not an acceptable way to form a coherent and cohesive society, is it? It's in fact insane and seems to be something akin to genocidal rhetoric. I mean, how would you describe this as something other than genocidal rhetoric? Like, it's just absolutely crazy that this is their chant. And the EFF, they're not a small party, by the way, right? They're way more successful than the Reform is. They've got 1 million members. 1 million people subscribe to this party. They have 39 out of the 400 seats in the National Assembly and various others in various other parts. Like, they're not an irrelevant party. They're 10 times bigger than Reform is in the UK, just FYI. And so it's like, okay, crazy. So you think Cyril Ramaphosa would be like, yeah, no, they're bad. But no, apparently he has not in any way condemned them. And instead what he's done is try to shore up his left flank by expropriating their property. It's like, oh, insane. Absolutely insane that they can say, no, there's no persecution of white people in South Africa. There obviously is. You guys are mental. There is no way I would recommend anyone live in this country if they're not sufficiently dark-skinned? And that's not even talking about the genuine material problems, as in the rolling blackouts, the failing economy, the fact that there's such incredible problems. And again, there are just racial affirmative action laws for the majority. This is a form of racial prejudice, discrimination, and oppression against the white minority. There's just no other way to describe it. That's what this is. That's what it means when you're like, well, the blacks aren't doing very well, and therefore we need to have affirmative action for them, the majority population of this country. That is crazy, and that's not going to last. And what you're going to see is the South African white population being like, you know what? I'm not sure there's a future here, because we seem to be surrounded by people who are insistent on robbing us for all of our riches and then murdering us because we're white. And so they're going to be like, no, we're going to have to leave because it's just dangerous to live among people who have been propagandized by communists since the mid-20th century to hate white people, even though they didn't have all of these things before the white people arrived, did they? And just to be clear, the finances of South Africa are just unbelievably bad, right? Unbelievably bad. This is from the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry. South Africa has fewer than 7.5 million taxpayers who are collectively supporting 28 million people who receive benefits from the government. That is mad. Absolutely mad. And if anyone thinks this is a sustainable system, they are mad also. And so they're literally like, well, look, that's 3% of people in South Africa who are paying 76% of all the personal income tax. That is insane. This is an insane, like, inverse pyramid of benefits claimants to taxpayers. This cannot go on. Having all of these racial affirmative action laws to essentially, just again, it's hard to just say that this isn't just open persecution, where they're not just saying we want to openly persecute the white population of South Africa. Like, this is unreal to see as someone from the first world, apparently, a majority white European country. This is just mad. And if this is what it's like when you get a white minority country, well, this is a good argument to not have a white minority country, right? I don't want racial affirmative action laws for the majority. I don't want the majority of people to be subsidized by my tax money. I mean, that again, how is that not just theft? And I also don't want lunatics, tens of thousands of them in stadiums, in a party 1 million strong, saying, kill the white man. Right? I don't want that for myself or for my children or my grandchildren. This is evil. This is wrong. And the thing is, the farm murders are just by far just some of the worst things I've ever seen. Right? I've read accounts and descriptions of what's happened, and if you want a sort of crash course introduction, Lauren Southern's Farmlands documentary is, it's genuinely horrible. It's just genuinely horrible, because what happens is, just out of nowhere, a small gang of black, I don't know, would you call them vigilantes? I don't know, but murderers will go onto one of these farms and then commit savage atrocities, the likes of which you have never even conceived of. Like boiling babies alive, because they're so far away from anyone that once they're in and they've like hacked down like the dad or whatever, there's nothing to stop them doing anything. And so they can do anything they want. And so they do just the most brutal things you can ever imagine. And she's got a whole slew of videos talking about this. And of course, the ANC don't want to talk about this, because what this is stochastic terrorism that is ginned up by the EFF and given cover by the ANC because they're worried about losing their voters to the EFF. And so this creates, I mean, to call it toxic is to just not properly describe the scope of the issue that the breakdown of race relations in South Africa has created. Like this is just, I mean, it's some of the worst stuff I've ever heard. And it's hard to believe that it's real, but I've got no reason to think that they're lying to me. And all the government can do is appeal to ideology. They can, oh, there are no refugees here. No, what you're doing is you're undermining the democratic spirit of the law, and we're trying to right historic wrongs. It's like, I don't know, man. I don't agree with you at all. I think that basically you've got nowhere to go from this point. And one of the problems that you have with Trump accepting these people as refugees, I mean, these people may have had family members of their own hacked to death by vigilante gangs of blacks who were ginned up by Julius Malema and then essentially ignored by the AFC. I mean, what percentage of these farm murderers do you think are prosecuted for their crimes? I bet it's going to be very, very low. And in fact, I bet law and order generally in South Africa is very, very low. I bet the court system is not really very functional. I suspect this is why Orania can actually come into a being, because the central government is just not competent, because everything in South Africa is just being run incompetently. Again, you don't have rolling blackouts if your country is being run by competent people. If the people in the country work well to support the system, which they obviously don't, because they're mostly benefits claimants and not taxpayers, this sort of stuff doesn't happen. This is mad what is happening in South Africa. It's a complete failure of the liberal dream. This should never have come about. And the fact that this has come about following the most orthodox and extreme interpretation of liberal universalism shows that this philosophy is nonsense, and this is a direct test case in how this will end up failing. And if it's failed there, there's no reason to think that this way of thinking and allowing these sorts of people to prosper isn't going to fail everywhere else.